Welcome to Global Investment Voice, your premier podcast for diving deep into the world of investment migration. Are you dreaming of a second or third passport? Then join us as we traverse the globe, exploring the ins and outs of the U.S. EB-5 immigrant investor visa, uncover the secrets of golden visas, and delve into the many residency and citizenship-by-investment programs. Each episode is packed with exclusive insights from top industry experts. Whether you're an investor, developer, or a visionary entrepreneur, we're here to guide you through the complexities of global investment migration. And who better to navigate this journey with than your hosts, the dynamic legal duo of this industry, Mona Shah and Rebecca Singh. Plus, hear directly from a lineup of global investment migration leaders. So, buckle up and tune in to Global Investment Voice, where your global investment journey begins and expands.
Welcome back to Global Investment Voice. A few weeks ago, we sat down to talk about Sao Tome and Principe, and a particular number kept coming up. That's $90,000 US. Yes, you heard it right, $90,000 US. That is what a second passport is being marketed at right now, in two very different corners of the world. One is in the Gulf of Guinea, and the other in the South Pacific. Today, we're looking at the Pacific one, Nauru, the world's third smallest country with a population of roughly 12,000, has launched what could be the most talked about citizenship program of 2026. And I'm delighted to say that I don't have to speculate very much today because the person who runs that program is here with us. Edward Clark is the Chief Executive Officer of the Nauru Program Office based in Auckland, New Zealand. Edward, welcome to Global Investment Voice.
Good morning, Mona. It's an absolute pleasure to be on the show today.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. But let me ask you, I know you haven't been in this industry very long and you came from what we would call the dark side, from the banking. But what brought you to Nauru?
Really, by luck, I happened to, as you say, I've been working in the banking industry previously, and we had actually sold the retail business for HSBC in New Zealand. I was between jobs, and really an approach from LinkedIn came out of the blue saying we're looking for someone to run this program.
You had a very negative view of the industry, right?
I did actually, and the first time that I heard about the industry was in books about money laundering. And so this was my preconceived and maybe, misconceived perception about the industry.
And basically now?
Well, that's changed very much since I've been in the industry. As you can imagine, I've got a very different view on what this industry is all about now.
Yeah. And what role do you play in the program office, your day-to-day job?
So I'm the CEO of the Nauru Program Office. We're representing the Nauru Economic and Climate Resilient Citizenship Program. So I'm basically responsible for running the citizenship program on behalf of the government. That's making sure that our team is operating effectively and we're delivering on our promise of a fast and efficient citizenship program.
Oh, excellent. Well, then you're the right person to answer many of these questions. I will say, though, that when I was doing research earlier on, everything led to Henley and Partners. So I was wondering, is that something that everybody has to go through if they're interested in the Nauru program?
No. So I'll explain a little bit. So Henley and Partners were involved in the conception of the program, and they effectively were contracted by the Nauru government to set up and run the program. So we are technically a subsidiary of Henley and Partners, but we operate entirely independently from the rest of Henley and Partners.
Got it. So let me ask you, though, it's not really well known in the US right now. Even Sao Tome is something which is pretty new. But the one thing that we are hearing and reading about is, and I understand, there has been a huge increase in applications. And you've been at the helm of this program's first year. Tell us a little about it. Has it surprised you?
Absolutely. I mean, firstly, I was new to the industry, so I didn't know what to expect. And, we came in at the end of 2024. And as you'll know, in the market, there are various programs in the Caribbean at that time. you also had Vanuatu. So we very much sort of came in as a strong competitor or alternative to Vanuatu.
Yeah, well, just to give it some color, I think it's interesting to understand. So you have Sao Tome or Sao Tome at 90,000. You have Nauru at 90,000. And then Vanuatu, I believe that is like 150,000 or 130,000. And then you have all the Caribbeans, which start from, I think, Grenada and St. Lucia. It starts from 150 to 200. St. Kitts at 230. So it is significantly lower than the others.
Yeah, and I think, this reflects Sao Tome's decision to launch a citizenship program as well. But what, we felt, or I guess the team at Henley & Partners felt and Nauru felt, was that there was a real gap in the market in terms of a lower cost program that is perhaps a little bit more accessible. And as you know, as things have developed, the price in the Caribbean has gone up quite a lot over recent years. So it did create quite an interesting gap in the market, and you can clearly see with the volumes that are coming through in both Nauru and Sao Tome, there is clear demand for products like this. The differentiating factor for places like the Caribbean historically has been the EU access, and that probably reflects the higher price tag, whereas, Nauru, Vanuatu now, Sao Tome don't have that. So it makes sense to price them at a lower price point, but clearly there's a lot of demand for these kind of products because people are not seeking alternative citizenships for the mobility. It's actually for other reasons.
That's something I'm going to go into in a minute. But what we are seeing now in the US, I mean, as immigration attorneys, and of course the Trump administration isn't helping, or rather it is helping. People are not confident anymore, and they do want a backup passport, and they want a backup passport for other reasons, more than one reason. And the thing is, this is priced so well, they can easily throw this in. Interestingly, though, when I was doing research, I noticed that one of the first publicly reported approval was a German family living in Dubai. That was in September of 2025.
Correct.
Are you comfortable sharing any numbers with us as to how many have been since?
I was looking at this earlier this week, actually. I think we have now over 56 new citizens of Nauru since the program was launched. So, and we're seeing that number grow on a daily basis now, which is really exciting as we're getting quite a lot of traction.
Before I get into why, I am going to ask you, the world has changed dramatically, as you know, in the last 2.5 months or 2 months with the whole Iranian war, Middle East instability. Are the global events showing up in your inbox?
Oh, 100%, Mona. And even before, actually, just with geopolitical uncertainty. And this is an example of the German family. They were worried about the prospect of military conscription, and they thought maybe having a second citizenship might give them a bit of a backup plan or way out of that for their children. And as you know, and I think this is a conversation that is happening in the US right now, potentially, it's still ongoing in Germany, and you can imagine in many other countries. So with the geopolitical uncertainty and these kind of events playing out, absolutely, it just really hammers home the benefits that having a second citizenship can provide to individuals and families, like a backup plan in case this happens. You think about maybe if you're in, say, Ukraine as an example.
Yeah, that's a good
example. And you wanted to leave the country as a citizen, and this is hypothetical, but if you wanted to leave the country as a citizen, you might not be able to leave because they might want to call you up to serve. Whereas if you have a second citizenship, maybe that gives you a way out. Just as one example, or even in the geopolitical, we've had other examples of a US citizen as an example, not feeling comfortable to travel to certain destinations on a US passport. So he wants an alternative citizenship to travel because it's a politically neutral passport, which is really interesting.
That is really good, interesting. And that's what I'm finding that a lot of people are going to get these second citizenships for. And I think Nauru is like San Tome, right? It keeps things confidential.
Absolutely. That's really important to the integrity of the program and trust from the applicants.
So what other reason are you seeing people come into purchasing a citizenship for Nauru?
So you do have the traditional reasons being mobility. Certainly, that's a big driver for a large portion of our applicants. We've talked a little bit about the geopolitical uncertainty and just having a backup plan. That's a strong one as well. We do see a little bit for education purposes as well. So possibly, particularly for example, Chinese nationals, to apply for an international school, you need to be holding an international passport, as an example, in some countries. This is not just in China, I think in places like Philippines that I'm aware of. So that's driving a lot of demand as well. And then you have just basic, contingency planning for whatever reason. And there's a lot of benefits that can provide.
So, Edward, just walk us through for our listeners very, very briefly the actual mechanics of the journey to actually receive your passport in hand.
So the overall processing time is around 3 to 4 months.
Oh, that's good. That's fast.
We are fast. We have had a couple of teething issues along the way, as you can expect, but we are able to resolve a lot of those very quickly. So you submit an application to us. Our team will review all the documents, make sure they're in order. We will conduct some initial due diligence on the application to make sure it has a reasonable chance of success. We work then with the police force in Nauru, we work with the financial intelligence unit in Nauru, and we also work with some third-party due diligence providers to conduct some background checks, similar to the Caribbean. And there is an interview involved as part of that process, but it's normally quite a quick interview. It should take around 15 minutes and is relatively straightforward, just confirming a lot of the information that's been provided in the application and addressing anything that might have come up during due diligence.
And remind me also how many family members there. Obviously you have your spouse and dependents, but what is the age?
So we actually have a very inclusive or family-friendly approach, and I would argue we are the most family-friendly citizenship program out there.
So, you mean you're allowed to bring your mother-in-law?
Well, I'll give you an example. So you can bring, obviously, your spouse and your children, but importantly for children, we don't have any age restriction.
Oh, wow.
And there are no financial dependency restrictions as well. So in a lot of programs, the children have to be financially dependent on the parents. That is not the case. That's also the case for parents. They don't need to be financially dependent.
Oh, you can have the mother-in-law. I was joking.
And yes, you can have the mother-in-law. You can have your siblings as well.
Wow. So
it actually is very family-friendly. And I think this is a real differentiator for Nauru because of the family-friendly approach. And that actually makes it quite an affordable program for families.
That's
and of course,
very interesting.
Given the lack of restrictions, so, children, it doesn't matter if they're married or not, doesn't matter what age they are, doesn't matter if they're employed or not, they are able to be included in the application.
And it all comes under $190,000 application?
There are a couple of additional fees, but they're not, I would say, very reasonable. I think to add another family member is only $2,000. And only if they're over the age of 16. So actually to add an additional family member or child that is under the age of 16, there's no additional cost.
No, that's incredible. But one of the features that I did read up about, which is the fact that you can have common law partners. So you accept, and I believe you do accept gay couples too.
I'll have to correct you on that one. So yes, it is common law, and we do accept de facto, and this is really reflective of Nauru law and what is common in Nauru culture, and this is why we changed the whole family approach, which that family inclusive policies that's only recently been changed, but we wanted to align with the very family values focus of Nauru, and we felt that this was the right thing to do. And that's similar with de facto and common law partners. The exclusion to that is that gay couples are not recognised or same-sex relationships are not recognised in Nauru, and so we need to be respectful of that culture as well.
All right. And tell me a little bit about the passport itself. What does it actually unlock for the holder? How many countries visa-free or visa-free on arrival?
Currently, we have 86 visa-free destinations, and key destinations include Singapore, Hong Kong, and UAE. And we are actively working to increase the number of visa-free destinations as well.
I think you have Ireland too, Ireland and Russia.
Russia is a visa-free destination. Ireland is not. That changed around the time we launched the program back in 2024. But Russia is, and Nauru actually has quite a good diplomatic relationship with Russia, which is why that exists.
So I have to ask you, who are the applicants then who are excluded? Because Russians are excluded from a lot of programs. Are Russians? I thought they were excluded here. And I believe, Iranians are also excluded?
So currently our approach to excluded countries is based on the UN high-risk country list or the FATF blacklist. So there are 3 countries on that, being Iran, North Korea, and Myanmar. So that's how we have sort of defined what is excluded. And this is something that is hard-coded into the legislation. So if that changes, then we will change our approach in line with that. But we do accept applications from, places like Russia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, but they are restricted. So what we typically look for when we think about a restricted country is, has that person, so if they might be a citizen of Russia as an example, we won't automatically accept the application, but we will accept it if they've been living outside of Russia for at least a period of 5 years, or if they are already resident in what you might class as a tier 1 country, such as the US or the EU or UK or New Zealand, Australia, as an example, where they've effectively gone through those security measures and been granted residency. So it's either 5 years or they're a resident in certain countries. And we also need to make sure that they have very limited financial ties to Russia. So if those 2 criteria are met, then we will accept. And this is a recent policy decision that we have made. So we made this change at the start of February this year, where we started accepting Russian applicants and we started to receive applications for Russians. The risk is really about the individual and not so much about the country. And we think that this can be effectively managed. And by doing it on a restricted basis, we're able to manage the, I would say, reputational risk and geopolitical risk that comes with making a decision like this, at the same time as managing the individual risk relating to the applicants, which is where the real risk actually lies.
Yeah, Edward, there's so much to talk about. And I know you are so knowledgeable. You have to come back on more programs and discuss other issues with us. But before I let you go, let me ask you something. If I wanted a passport from Nauru, do I have to actually go and visit the country and stay there?
No. So this is, again, one of the advantages to the Nauru program is that there are no residency requirements and there are no travel requirements to visit the country. So the entire process can be done remotely. I don't expect that this is going to change either.
Yeah.
We want the Nauru program to be accessible. And Nauru is not the most accessible place. So asking people to travel there would be, I think, quite a challenge.
Yeah. How do you get there?
I want to say, having a remote program and being able to do everything digitally enables us to process things very fast, which is something that is really important for us. Yeah. Now, to answer your second question, how do you get to Nauru? There are 2 ways. You can either travel through Fiji or you can travel through Australia. But what is interesting is Nauru actually has their own airline. For a country of 12,000, it's quite remarkable.
Wow.
And also, not only is it their own airline, but that airline services a number of other countries in the South Pacific. So they actually act as a vital lifeline to a number of countries. That's a separate conversation, I think.
Right. Well, we have lots more to discuss, lots and lots. And we look forward to having you back on a program. This was our first taste of Nauru, and I am sure you've already whetted a lot of appetites. It's not, second passport doesn't always solve a defined problem, but it is, and it doesn't pretend to be either, but it is a step in the right direction, I think.
Oh, absolutely. We see this from nearly all of our applicants in terms of the varying benefits that it offers. And sometimes you don't even know you need it until it's too late. So it's better to have that as a contingency plan. If you're able to afford it, it's actually a very valuable asset for someone to hold for various reasons, as we've talked about earlier.
Right. Well, we love to get you back, and thank you so much for being a guest on Global Investment Voice.
It's an absolute pleasure, Mona, and I look forward to further discussions.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of Global Investment Voice. A huge thank you to all our listeners for tuning in and sharing this journey with us. Curious about unlocking the potential of global migration and citizenship? Make sure to visit us online at mshawlaw.com and globalinvestmentvoice.com. Dive into our extensive library of podcast episodes. Stay ahead with the latest in migration news by signing up for our insider newsletter. Don't forget to connect with us on social media. Find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook to keep the conversation going. Remember, the insights shared in our podcast are for informational purposes only, so please seek tailored legal, financial, or investment advice where needed. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep investing smart and living well with Global Investment Voice. We'll see you on the next episode.